Yesterday, we had a great conversation about our environment here in the state of Michigan. We are so lucky to live in this state. It's so diverse. But one of the things that makes our state great has to do with our natural resources. But what's it been like in the middle of the pandemic? There is an organization that is dedicated to preserving the health of not only the people of Michigan, but also our environment. To talk a little bit more, we want to bring in Sean Hammond. He's the policy director for the Michigan Environmental Council, and Sandra Turner-Handy. She's the engagement director for the nonprofit. Great to have you both with us here on the MegaCast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sean, if we can start with you, for those not familiar with the Michigan Environmental Council, give us a background on the organization.
Yeah, happy to. So we're a nonprofit coalition of environmental organizations from across the state. So we were founded about 40 years ago in 1980 by 6 leading environmental groups at the time. We are now north of 70 member groups from across the state. And they range in interest groups from local watershed councils to groups like Transit Riders United out of the city of Detroit, looking at transit, and then health-based groups, regional-based environmental groups. You name it. If it has an interest in the environment, they're probably a member group of ours.
And so with that, Sean, do you sometimes feel like there's so much you want to do and so many problems you want to try to solve? How do you prioritize some of these issues here in Michigan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work focused on Michigan, so that does limit our scope a little bit from the possibilities. But we work with our members and then with our internal staff expertise to develop what priorities are kind of the top of the year, and then some of them are dictated for us by the legislature and the administration and what they're working on. And Sandra is our engagement coordinator and really helps us engagement director, excuse me, and really helps us her team helps us do outreach to our members to help gather, that information.
So with that, Sandra, if we could toss it over to you, what's it been like over the past year? Because I would think part of your job is to talk to people, be around people, but yet we've all been locked in our homes.
Yes, it has been strange. However, we learn to adapt. You learn to adapt. And now that we're in virtual worlds, some of our disconnect may come from people not being able to connect to us virtually. And that has been the hard part, is trying to reach people through virtual meetings. However, it has been really successful in that the majority of people have been able to connect. We are still doing our work. We are engaging. We're bringing on new organizations and new members into MEC, through our engagement. So it's been different, but it still goes on.
And so with that, Sandra, what are some of the big topics that you're trying to get the public engaged and involved with at this point in time?
Well, in my scope, environmental justice is always a great issue. I mean, it is like always at the top of my priority list because it impacts our air, our water, our land. These issues that relate to our natural resources always have an impact on the people. And so it's about trying to mitigate these impacts.
Yeah, and I think about even prior to the pandemic, we know, especially in the city of Detroit, it has some of the most polluted zip codes in the entire country. And you wonder too, did the environmental factors play a role in COVID-19 and the cases in the beginning of the pandemic? Because we know Detroit and some of these zip codes, the people living in the zip codes were hit especially hard.
Yes. We know that COVID attacks mitigating health issues. In the city of Detroit, we have a high rate of obesity and cancer and asthma and heart disease. And these are the things that COVID really attached to. So we did see a high impact from COVID. And adding to that is some social justice issues like access to quality health care, economic status in the city, those type of things. They all play a role in how COVID attacked the city and attacked many of our residents here in the city.
We're talking with Sandra Turner-Handy. She's the engagement director for the nonprofit Michigan Environmental Council, as well as Sean Hammond. He's the policy director for the organization. And Sean, with that, can we talk a little bit about the water crisis in Flint? Here we are, how many years later? And while there are lawsuits and there are criminal cases, I feel like so many people in the city of Flint have been left behind. This issue really still has not been resolved.
Yeah, that's correct. It is still a major concern, particularly for the residents of Flint, as we are continuing to roll out changes to our water laws. As we know, we just updated the lead and copper rule at the statewide level to be more aggressive than what is federally required. And the hope there is that we can replace all the lead service lines. I know that work has been underway in Flint for a number of years. But really it's still continuing. It's about building that trust, and that's what this is there was a breakdown of trust in the water system and in the government to provide clean, safe drinking water. And that's a very, very difficult job to build that back once it's happened. And that's part of this is building up the policies to make it happen, but also there needs to be more people focused and getting on the ground and really understanding what the issues on the ground still are, why, and helping better understand what's going on with people, connecting people to the state of Michigan directly. Because until we do that, we're still going to have issues. If water system isn't being used, it also causes different issues than necessarily lead. The water has to circulate through the system effectively to maintain its quality. That's how they're designed. So there's a lot of factors and questions still that still hover over that city, and we need to do, as the state, need to do a better job of helping rebuild that trust.
So with that too, Sean, if I can ask you just your opinion, we had the representative from Water and Oil Don't Mix on the show yesterday talking about Line 5 in Enbridge. Your thoughts on that controversy right now?
Yeah, that's something that we've followed, and we're a member of Oil and Water Don't Mix, that coalition, as well. So we've been working with them and other partners on this issue for a number of years, and really it's kind of an end game at this point. Enbridge is trespassing on state land, and the governor has made it very clear what the consequences will be if that trespassing continues. But ultimately, we know that there's a couple court cases continuing on this topic, and that's as much as sometimes that's disappointing to see, but that's where this is likely to be settled out. We believe at MEC that there's a very strong case that this is a lease issue, this is an easement issue, and nothing more. The state has control over our sovereign bottomlands, and we can lease them as we see fit with certain conditions. Those conditions were broken by Enbridge, and so we revoke the easement. And that's, to us, it's pretty much that straightforward. That at this point, Enbridge is trespassing because they broke their easement.
So with that too, if I can shift the focus just a little bit, Sean, and ask you, so one of the things here in the state of Michigan, we have such a low rate. I believe it's 15, 18% of people that actually recycle. And we know and we understand how important recycling is to our environment and the health of our environment. Uh, Especially, I think for us here in Michigan, we visibly relate that to the bottle and can return. And we saw that breakdown throughout the pandemic. Is that enough to get us where we need to be, is to fix the recycling issue?
So yeah, there's a number of layers in the recycling issue right now, and one is the bottle bill, and with the pandemic, we saw a drop in returns. I don't necessarily expect that to continue. We had multiple months without allowing returns, and we know that there's probably bottles and cans in people's garages still. So I think next year we're going to see, or this year we're going to see a rebound in return rates on that. But what we haven't done that other states have done pretty successfully is invest in our other recycling infrastructure. So we see states with bottle bills who do really good with recycling, and we see states like us with bottle bills who do poorly, and vice versa. Poor states without bottle bills, and poor states are in great states without bottle bills. So to us, it's kind of two separate issues. It does really well at the bottle bills do really well at the stream they're trying to get to. But what we also need to do is readdress our policies and our focus on the other part of recycling and invest more into that. And there's a bill package trying to do that to turn our shift. We wrote a bill 25 years ago that really focused on landfilling and how can we make sure we have enough space to landfill all our trash. We did a great job. We have 47 years of capacity plus statewide for the trash that we're producing. And what we need to do is level the playing field and make it so recycling and composting is competitive again.
I will say, when it comes to recycling cans, during the pandemic, I was like, okay, we'll collect them, we'll, take them back. It was such a pain in the butt because if you go to Costco, they don't take Kroger cans. You go to Kroger, they don't take these cans or these cans or these cans. So then you're running to all these places. The lines were out the door, if you could even get in, because they were only taking so many people. At the end of the day, I was like, no, I'm over it. So we do have recycling curbside, but we started collecting them, and there's a person in the neighborhood who's collecting them to help pay for her nursing schooling and her book. So I'm like, if you want the hassle of trying to return these cans, you can have the money because it is such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and that's something that, we're working on, discussions on how to modernize the bottle bill because it was built for something that existed 40 years ago. And we can make changes to make it more consumer friendly so that taking it back isn't a drive to 6 different stores, if that's even available to you. So there's ways to solve that issue. And that's something we're, having active discussions on with partners.
So, Sandra, if I can ask you something, Sean had mentioned about trying to build trust with the community. And as the engagement director, what has that been like for you?
I have to say that I've been very lucky with it because my passion is so much rooted in community and building relationships. However, if people do not have voice that is invested in issues where they know they're being listened to, they're called in prior to a plan being set, they're there to help develop the plan, their voices are heard, they see it on paper. That's how you build relationships, is by allowing residents and others to really invest in policy and allow them to bring their stories to the table. And those are listened to. We have the science, we have plenty of data. Now let's put the voice behind the data. And when we start doing that, people begin to respect and trust you around the work you're doing because they know it's inclusive. And that's the word, inclusive.
Yeah, because it could be so challenging in the beginning to get the buy-in.
Yes.
And then once you can start getting the results, then I will say my experience, especially in some of the neighborhoods in Detroit, the illegal dumping in Detroit is my biggest pet peeve. It drives me insane. And going in to try to clean up the neighborhoods, they were so frustrated. But once you got it cleaned up, they maintained it. But a big part of that was, just like you said, getting them invested, but having their voices heard as well. And that is so key, I think, to so many of the issues that we have here.
Yes, we always talk about engagement, but it has to be authentic, and if we're parachuting in and out of communities and, say we're getting their voice, but then you never see it reflected anywhere, that becomes inauthentic, and that destroys trust with different groups.
We're talking with Sandra Turner-Handy. She's the engagement director for the Michigan Environmental Council, as well as Sean Hammond. He's the policy director. Sean, just another couple of minutes with the both of you before we say goodbye for the day. Anything maybe we didn't touch on that you want to add?
There's just so many moving parts with the environment right now, and we're really happy with a few things that are going on at the state, particularly looking at like the climate council that was created by the governor. That council's work is ongoing and is really tackling some of the biggest issues of the day, and that's one thing that I want to make sure we're flagging is that we are trying to work towards these bigger goals even throughout the pandemic. A lot of things got delayed, particularly, announcements on climate council, announcements on some of our mobility discussions at the statewide level that the governor's been leading. But those work has really started up again with fervor early this year, and so we're excited to. This is an exciting time to be working on environmental issues in Michigan, as there's a lot of opportunity for over the next few years to lay out the future for our state.
I think people have come to realize, especially over the past year, just how important our environment here in the state of Michigan really is to the health of all of us in our communities. And with that, Sandra, anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
I just wanted to jump back to the recycling. We really need to start changing our habits. And it's about creating new habits. We have to learn how to reduce our waste. We have to learn how to reuse materials without changing our habit of a throwaway culture, where our recycling is always going to be at minimum.
So with that, Sean, how can people find out more if they want to get involved? Because I know that it's not just your organization, but you're a part of several organizations.
Yeah, so I'd say the number one piece of information is our website, environmentalcouncil.org. And then we also have a Twitter account and a Facebook account, and we are continually posting updates and news and on the work that we're doing and on environmental happenings around Michigan. Um, uh, right on those social media pages. And then, of course, Sandra and our engagement team, if you are an environmental organization and you're interested in learning more about the council and how to be a part of it, Sandra and her team are the go-to there.
And I was, come together. When we are a collective voice, we get things done. So thank you to the both of you for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Thank
you
you
for
for having us.
Again, Sean Hammond, he's the policy director for the Michigan Environmental Council, along with Sandra Turner-Handy, who is the engagement director.